I'm exhausted. I become really impatient and procrastinate a lot. I cannot concentrate on the smallest things. Where is my motivation? What's wrong with me? Lately, I've been feeling like a depleted battery and I really don't know how to recharge. I've done a little research and based on what I read, I might have something called burnout. It says here that burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. Basically, our lives burn us out. Social media, the internet, our cell phones, relationships with other people, our children, working during the pandemic. These are all stressors that we need to cope with. I personally feel challenged by all these. Even though burnout first got its name back in 1973, the World Health Organization recognized it as a syndrome in 2019, and compared with the existence of humankind, these dates are relatively new. It's still not recognized as a medical condition, but there's a standard to measure it and there's a scientific definition. And in order to find out what's wrong with me, I thought going to the psychiatrist, who's at the same time a medical doctor, would be the best start. I'm hoping to get a diagnosis from Dr. Pınar Algedik. So thank you, doctor, for seeing me. Lately I've been feeling a little bit strange, and based on what I read, I might have something called burnout. Can you please help me find out if I have it or not?
There is a quick test which might give us an idea. Let's do it and find out.
Okay.
Do you have loss of motivation?
Yes.
Do you have difficult concentration?
Yes.
Do you constantly feel energy depletion or exhausted?
Yes.
Do you feel increased mental distance from your job?
No.
Do you feel negativism or cynicism towards your job?
No.
Do you feel reduce of professional efficacy?
No.
Do you feel helpless, trapped and defeated?
No.
Based on the quick test I did, you don't have burnout, but it doesn't mean you won't have it.
Okay, thank you. Well, learning that I don't have burnout was helpful, but at the same time I'm very surprised because I was pretty sure that's what I had. I guess the pandemic has exacerbated these feelings in many of us, and I'm sure there are millions out there who share my feelings, my symptoms, but are not burned out. A recent study I found says that around the world 3 out of 5 workers say they're burned out. And this year shows that during the pandemic there is an apparent rise of burnout among all generations. And there are countless other studies which point to the same conclusion. But is the word burnout used wrongfully as a synonym for being tired? What does a person really feel when he or she is burned out? I'm hoping to find an answer to this question by talking to a clinical psychologist, Erdi Yeşilkaya. So recently I found that I'm not suffering from burnout, but there's still something wrong with me. I feel some symptoms. I want to find out what a person feels when he or she is suffering from burnout.
Actually, burnout is a state of chronic stress, results in apathy. Individuals with burnout start to lose their feelings towards responsibilities. Hopelessness occurs, lose their faith in tomorrow and future as well. They cannot imagine future. Burnout syndrome impairs concentration and memory skills. People with burnout barely concentrate and they may forget the topics they will normally remember. The lack of concentration and memory skills prevents them from tasting the sense of accomplishment because they cannot concentrate, they cannot allocate their full attention, and without full attention, success is nearly impossible. They also feel fatigue, exhaustion. They're unwilling to create anything, do something.
Wait a minute, but you're kind of describing depression. Am I depressed then?
Would you go on holiday if you are able to find a few days?
Yeah, I would love to.
Would you have fun?
Yes, very much so.
And it seems like you're not depressed, because if you will be depressed, it will be hard for you to be having fun, enjoying the planning before and enjoying inside the holiday place. You even wouldn't have fun while you are swimming.
So I'm not depressed, yay, but I also know that you cannot fix burnout just by going on a vacation, because you might go on that vacation, enjoy yourself, but if you come back to the same life and work pattern, then you're just gonna feel the same things in just a couple of days. So I guess it's not about just fixing ourselves, but about fixing the environment and conditions we live in. It turns out I'm not burned out yet, but I'm definitely going through something, and I have so many questions on my mind. For example, are these feelings, are they just the life itself, or is burnout something which emerged as a modern thing? What's the root of this problem? I think I just found the perfect guy to give me more information. I'll now speak to Sinan Canan, who is a well-known Turkish neurobiologist and writer. He spends a lot of time understanding how the brain works and its connections to how we live our lives.
We live in a very different world that we are set to live in for. We are set for ancient times with no food, a lot of dangers, open to any kind of danger posed by the nature. But right now, we don't have none of them. We just live in a, guaranteed world. Everything is for granted, and our brain circuits and body mechanisms are built in those ancient days. Even if your life is depleted, it always goes on. It extends beyond your capabilities. So in such a world, we feel an inescapable inadequacy. We cannot compete with such a setting, even though we build it by ourselves. We built this civilization, but we cannot cope with it. So most of the problems that we are faced today, mental problems, physical problems, medical problems, whatever you think of, are generally coming from these discrepancies between our ancient settings and our modern ways of living.
So can you please tell us the impact of burnout on the human brain? Can you maybe show us there?
Yeah, I can try to draw some pictures about this. This is a typical schematic view of the human brain. This is the frontal portion of the brain. This is the back portion of the brain, and this one is anterior cingulate gyrus. That is very important in regulating emotions. And this system controls the whole orchestra that we call the body. In the central portions of our brain, there is a specific region called the amygdala. Amygdala is the region for strong emotions like fear or anxiety or rage. Amygdala is stimulated by any kind of stressor and prepare the brain and the body for some set of actions to cope with that stressor itself. We have also a frontal brain, which makes us human, and one of the functions of the frontal brain is to control the amygdala and the structures alike in order to function properly in social settings and direct our movements appropriately in your daily lives. But if you have too much stress, you have too much stimulation in your amygdala, then frontal lobe always tries to suppress the stress response or control the stress response generated by this region. And if it takes too long, if it takes several months or years, those connections between the frontal brain and the amygdala or other emotional center started to weaken or veer out, then we gradually lose the control of our emotions. This is one of the mechanisms makes the burnout syndrome possible.
Your Your work or your relationship can become an emotional strain that you won't even notice it until you start seeing other symptoms. That's exactly what happened to me. Once you have burnout or you're on the brink of it, what should you do? Of course, consulting a professional is one thing, but identifying the problems is very important. Once you identify the causes of these stresses, then you have to take steps to reduce them. In some cases, it's not possible to escape from these stresses. What should you do then? I'm going to ask this question to a psychologist, Dr. Banu İboğlu-Von, a psychotherapist who specializes in consciousness and society. She's worked with many people struggling with burnout. Sometimes we can diagnose the problem that there are stressors in our lives, but there is no way to escape from it. What shall we do then?
We can't always change our environment. But even asking the question can in the long term help us, but in the short term, some of the things we can do is, first of all, include more breaks and rest in your life. And we find for productivity, actually rest improves productivity rather than hamper it. The other thing is to look for meaningful social connections, adding more social connections in your life, and connecting with people who you feel a sense of solidarity, who you can share resources with.
So this yes we can culture is makes us push our limits, right? And actually no we can't, right?
Yeah. Yes we can sometimes. Yeah. And sometimes we can't, and that's okay. And then sometimes we can do something different. A lot of times when we're in burnout mode, our mind also gets fixated on one thing. It tends to think in very black and white terms, and it helps to take a break from it and do these activities that will break us out of our routine, to really shift our perspective and see that we are in the trance of yes we can and yes we must, otherwise we're not worthy. And that life is not to increase our worth. We're not cars, we're not houses, we're humans, and life is to be lived. So part of that living is sometimes failing at what you're going to do.
These yes we cans, nothing is impossible, perfectionism, all these are making us more and more tired. Yes, I feel overwhelmed, but at the same time I found out that I'm not as burned out as I thought. I'll definitely need to make some changes in my life, like making my work and life balance better. And if you feel the same, please seek help.